What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Morgan Doobie Show. On today's episode, we're going to watch a portion of an Aron Ra video so I can point out how embarrassingly wrong he is, why you should not learn the Bible from an atheist, and how I got ChatGPT to acknowledge the existence of God.
Boom.
It's one of my biggest pet peeves that atheists, particularly atheist YouTubers, think it's appropriate to teach the Bible when they've so clearly never read it, or perhaps they've skimmed through it and think that that makes them some sort of biblical expert. The Bible is not just one book. It is a compilation of 66 different books. God did not give us the Bible with chapters and verse numbers. Like David Pawson says, if he wanted us to read it that way, he would have given it to us that way, but he didn't. You have to read the Bible book by book, and you absolutely cannot conflate verses together like Aron Ra does in this video. You can't just make up verses that aren't in the Bible and claim that they are. This is why I highly encourage you to not take YouTubers, particularly atheist YouTubers, word for it and do the research yourself. I don't even want you to take my word for it. I would love if you listen to what I say and it piques your interest enough to look up these things for yourself. That is something that these atheist YouTubers don't at all acknowledge. They are so highly arrogant. They present what they're speaking on as if it is factually sound, intellectually superior knowledge, when it is anything but. So let's go ahead and watch a portion of this video and I'll point out everything he gets wrong, and then we'll look at what the Bible actually says and how ChatGPT even acknowledges how unbelievably fascinating this information is. It even acknowledges how it couldn't have been anything other than divine revelation.
I was always told that God is not a man that he should lie. And how do we know that? Well, because it's in a book or compilation of books that are purported to be the Word of God, even though everybody knows that every book of the Bible was written by men who lie.
Okay, circular reasoning right off the bat. And also, just because men can lie doesn't mean they were lying.
So what does that mean about God? Does God lie? God only knows, because all anyone knows about God is from a book written by men pretending to speak for God, a God who can never speak for himself.
So many logical fallacies.
So how do we know that that's really what they're doing, that they're just pretending to speak for God? Well, let's look at the book of Job, for example.
Yes, let's.
Therein, God says that the sea is shut up behind doors, and that the earth is a flat disk in the shape of clay when pressed by a seal, and that it has edges that you can grab and shake the evil off of it.
Okay, conflating a bunch of verses together there.
And God says he laid a foundation for the earth, and he erected pillars on it, and then he took the earth, presumably by the edges, and then sat atop those pillars.
Doesn't say anything about God erecting pillars and sitting on them at all. It does not say that.
And God also says that the sun will not rise unless he commands it to, because God doesn't know what the sun is, nor where it is, nor how big it is.
Nope, doesn't say that either.
Nor does he know the true shape of the earth either. He doesn't know that he's got everything round backwards, that the earth goes around the sun and not the other way around.
The Bible definitely, I think it's in Isaiah, mentions the sphericity of the earth. It doesn't say it's a sphere, but it definitely makes reference to it being a circle. And you have to keep in mind that this was during a time period where most cultures believed the earth was either flat or they believed that it was propped up on top of something. Like the Chinese thought it was propped up on the back of a tortoise. So for the Bible to make reference to the earth being suspended in the air and being the shape of a circle is pretty advanced for its time. I mean, you have to remember that all of these statements are metaphors. The book of Job is a poetry book.
This isn't just some Bronze Age moron raving about what he thinks the voices in his head are trying to tell him. No. We are expected to believe that this is God speaking directly to Job in person.
I can't wait to look at what God actually says to Job in these verses.
Albeit disguised as a whirlwind. Because remember that people back then didn't know that air was particulate matter. They thought that air was a supernatural spirit that gave us the breath of life. And when things moved because of the wind or whatever, whether they're clouds or a whirlwind or what have you, then they thought all of that was supernatural and an animating spiritual life force. You really should read the book of Job, and God says some really stupid things in that book.
You really should read the book of Job.
Now, seriously, every argument is so bad and so dumb, they could only be the words of mere fallible men who didn't know anything about the world around them, pretending to speak for God.
Okay, so first off, I cannot believe he is judging metaphors literally and then pretending like God is stupid. That just makes you look stupid. It is so clear he's never actually even read the book of Job. Otherwise, he would have a much better understanding of what he's talking about. This just shows Mr. Ra's personal bias because you wouldn't take any other book of poetry. For example, I'm a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan. He's one of my favorite poets, one of my favorite writers. You wouldn't take a verse out of one of his writings, a metaphor, a poetic verse, and judge it literally, and then claim it's stupid. It's like going to see Star Wars and complaining afterwards, like, we can't fly at light speed. Those physics aren't right. Well, yeah, it's a sci-fi movie. The book of Job is a poetry book. But let's go ahead and look at what these verses actually say. Because even ChatGPT acknowledged that this must have been divine revelation. The statements made are statements that the ancients couldn't possibly have known. So months ago, I used ChatGPT to analyze God speaking to Job verse by verse to see what it had to say. I'm going to share with you some of the verses that Aron Ra tried to speak about. So I'll read the verse first, and then after the verse, I'll read what ChatGPT says as its explanation for what the verse is talking about. Job 38:4. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. God challenges Job by asking about the creation of the earth, a foundational event of creation that predates human existence, emphasizing Job's lack of first-hand knowledge or understanding. Job 38:5. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? This verse continues the challenge, asking rhetorically about the measurements and planning involved in creating the earth, further illustrating the precision and intentionality of divine creation. Job 38:6. On what were its footings set, or who laid its cornerstone? God questions Job about the earth's foundations, using architectural imagery to depict the earth's creation as a carefully constructed edifice, highlighting the depth of consideration and power involved. Job 38:7. While the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy. This verse adds a cosmic and celebratory dimension to the creation narrative, suggesting a universe alive with wonder and joy at the moment of creation, with celestial beings participating in the celebration. Summary. These verses begin a comprehensive exploration of various elements of the natural world, from the foundations of the earth to the behavior of the sea, the workings of the cosmos, and the habits of animals. Through this exploration, God emphasizes not only the complexity and majesty of creation, but also the care, wisdom, and power that underpin it. The rhetorical questions serve to humble Job and the readers, drawing attention to the vast gap between divine knowledge and human understanding. These are also some of the verses that Mr. Ra conflates and includes in his little spiel. Job 38:8. Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb? This verse speaks to the creation of the sea, personifying it as emerging from a womb, and God setting its boundaries as if closing doors, suggesting control over the sea's power and extent. Job 38:9. When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness. Here, God describes the creation of the sea's atmosphere, using imagery of clothing and darkness to depict the sea's enveloping conditions, indicating a level of detail and care in creation. Job 38:10. When I fixed limits for it and set its bars and doors. God emphasizes the setting of boundaries for the sea, preventing it from engulfing the earth. This knowledge of establishing physical limits demonstrates control over the natural world structure and behavior. Job 38:11. And said, This far you may come and no farther. Here is where your proud waves halt. This verse further underscores the idea of God imposing restrictions on the sea, illustrating a command over the forces of nature that would be beyond human capability, reflecting knowledge and power that affirm divine authority over creation. Let's read just a few more verses that Mr. Ra mentions in his video. Job 38:12. Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place? This question to Job underscores the divine control over time and the natural order, specifically the transition from night to day, which is beyond human capability to command. Job 38:13. That it might take the earth by the edges and shake the wicked out of it. Here, the imagery of dawn taking the earth by the edges and effecting change upon it suggests a divine perspective on justice and the moral order of the world, again highlighting knowledge and power uniquely attributed to God. The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. This verse describes the formation and distinct features of the earth in a way that suggests a craftsman's precision akin to sealing clay or designing a garment, emphasizing a purposeful design and creation. Job 38:15. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. This passage speaks to the outcomes for the wicked, implying a divine role in justice and the outcomes of human actions, which reflects a level of control and governance over moral order. Summary. These verses continue to showcase God's unparalleled knowledge and authority over the creation and operation of the natural world, including phenomena like the dawn and the moral order, which are presented as directly governed by divine will. The use of poetic imagery emphasizes the complexity, beauty, and order of creation, all of which point to insights and powers attributed to God alone. So look, I used ChatGPT so I could show you that this isn't just a matter of his opinion versus my opinion. It is literally a matter of his opinion versus the truth versus the facts. You can't just make a video and lie about things that aren't even in the Bible to make a stupid argument that could very well influence people and prevent them from ever learning the truth. This is why it is so important for you to do your own research. Look up for yourself what these atheist YouTubers tell you, what I tell you, what anyone tells you on the internet. The craziest part of this whole thing is, despite the fact that these are metaphorical, poetic statements, they're highly accurate statements. The last thing I want to show you is a speech that J Warner Wallace did of all of the incredibly accurate scientific statements found within the book of Job, things that the ancients couldn't possibly have known, and so it clearly came from God himself. Just listen to what he says, and you tell me what you think.
Canst thou bind the sweet influence of Pleiades? God is kind of looking at Job and saying, hey, Job, you think you're so good? You think you can keep this constellation together? You think you can keep Pleiades together? I can keep Pleiades together. Okay, What's he trying to get at here? Well, now we know what Pleiades really is. It looks like 7 stars, but they aren't really 7 stars. They're 7 clusters of stars. There are 250 suns in those 7 clusters. But they look like one star because they're so tightly clustered together. And as it turns out, they're all moving in the same direction. So they'll always look this way. Isabel Lewis was the United States Naval Observatory astronomer, and she wrote, astronomers have identified 250 stars as actual members of this group, all sharing a common motion and drifting through space in the same direction. Lewis says they are, quote, journeying onward together through the immensity of space, unquote. God could keep this together, and it will be together from our perspective. But how would Job know that? You think this constellation looked anything different in the entire history of Judaism than Orion? That hasn't changed. You can still look in the nighttime sky and see Orion. How would Job know that this is stay together? This will stay together no matter what. Do you think you can loosen the bands of Orion? The band of Orion is this belt, and it's made up of 3 stars, Mintaka, Alnilam, and Alnitak. It's almost like God is saying, hey, Job, you think you're this good? You can loosen these bands? I can loosen them. And sure enough, this is a very different situation than Pleiades. Garrett Serviss is a famous astronomer, wrote a book called Curiosities in the Sky. He wrote, today this band consists of an almost perfectly straight line of second magnitude stars that are equally spaced and very beautiful. In the course of time, however, the 2 right-hand stars, Mintaka and Alnilam, will approach each other and form a naked eye double. So in essence, these 2 stars on the right are eventually going to move together and they will form a naked eye double. The other star will drift away eastward so that the band will no longer exist. Unlike Pleiades, from Job's perspective, God can loosen this band. But how would Job know? What about Arcturus, though? Can you guide Arcturus and the suns? Do you think you can guide Arcturus anywhere you want? Garrett Serviss again wrote that Arcturus is one of the greatest suns in the universe, is a runaway star whose speed of flight is about 257 miles per second. It is massive. And it happens to be so massive that it is not affected by other gravitational objects. It's like a bull in a china shop. It goes wherever it wants to go. And it's huge and it's fast. It's traveling a lot faster than, say, our sun. This is a fast, heavy star that Charles Buckhalter of the Chabot Observatory, he wrote a book called Wonder Worlds. He says Arcturus's high velocity places that in a very small class of stars that apparently are a law unto themselves. The study of the book of Job in its comparison with the latest scientific discoveries has brought me to the matured conviction that the Bible is an inspired book and was written by the one who made the stars.
Isn't that amazing? I had never heard that until like 6 months ago when I first watched this video, and I was just blown away. So what I did was I plugged this all into ChatGPT. I first wanted it to verify the statements made in the book of Job regarding the Pleiades, Orion, and Arcturus. Then I wanted to verify the accuracy of the modern scientific knowledge that we now know about these constellations. Then I had it list all of the possible ways that Job could have known this information. And ChatGPT itself acknowledged that the only possible way Job could have known these statements, could have written these statements down thousands of years before we discovered these statements to be so accurate, was through divine revelation. God truly did speak to Job, and Job faithfully recorded what he said. So for anybody who claims that God didn't leave us any proof of his existence, I'm sorry, but you're just wrong. He left us so much proof. It's up to you to find it. All right, so that's pretty much all I've got for today. If you've made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope you found that as interesting as I do. And thanks for all the comments you guys have been leaving. I can't tell you how much fun I've had going through those and responding to them. And it means a lot that you enjoyed my videos. So thanks again, and I will see you guys next time.
Wow. Bye.